They were supposed to live in silence, their lives devoted to God. But behind those stone walls and stained glass windows, they whispered secrets that could topple kings. In the heart of medieval Europe, when confessionals were safer than courts and letters carried death sentences, a hidden network of women in habits began moving like shadows through history, serving not just heaven, but espionage. Before we go deeper into this holy conspiracy, tell me, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? I always love seeing how far these hidden histories travel. And if you haven't yet, share and subscribe, because what you're about to hear is a story the church never wanted you to know. They called them the Sisters of Silence. On parchment, they were recorded as humble servants, midwives, scribes, caregivers. But in truth, many of these women were the eyes and ears of kings, popes, and rival lords. When men were busy fighting crusades, nuns became the unseen link between power and faith, using prayer books to hide codes, rosaries to carry messages, and confessionals to deliver intelligence. It all began in the 12th century, when Europe was drowning in politics disguised as piety. The church's influence stretched across kingdoms, but information moved slowly, intercepted, forged, or lost. So who could be trusted to move between monasteries, cities, and palaces unnoticed? Who could overhear the words of nobles without suspicion? The answer was obvious: the women of God. In convents from Paris to Prague, abbesses quietly trained sisters not just to read scripture, but to understand patterns. The timing of royal visits, the shifting alliances of dukes, the subtle tones in letters from bishops. The church was, after all, an empire of information, and information was power. In the Benedictine Abbey of Fontevraud, a young nun named Isabeau began transcribing letters for a visiting bishop. But when she saw a hidden mark under the wax seal, a code only clerical spies used, she realized she was part of something much larger. Her abbess, instead of punishing her curiosity, showed her how to listen without hearing, how to gather whispers without ever leaving the convent. The church, of course, would deny all of it. But historians later uncovered traces of these operations: coded letters hidden inside hymnals, invisible ink made from crushed violets, and delivery routes that matched the movements of royal envoys. The nuns' sandals left no footprints, but their messages shaped treaties, papal elections, even wars. Some of them worked for Rome, some for France. A few, the most dangerous, played both sides. In one intercepted letter from 1289, an unnamed sister referred to herself only as the Lily. The content was explosive. It exposed an affair between a cardinal and a duchess that could have torn two kingdoms apart. The letter was never meant to survive, yet a copy found centuries later matched the handwriting of a scribe from a small convent near Avignon. And that's just one. Imagine dozens of convents, hundreds of women, hidden behind silence and scripture, yet moving information like veins through the body of Europe. They were the perfect spies because they never looked like spies. But not all were willing participants. Many were drafted, noble daughters forced into convents to serve as pawns. A noblewoman might enter a cloister as Sister Beatrice, only to find herself copying coded documents by candlelight. One mistake could mean eternal damnation or a noose. Yet, what choice did they have? Their families had traded them for peace, for land, for alliances, and the church kept them useful. One chilling record from a convent near Lubeck describes a sister who vanished after misplacing a courier scroll. Weeks later, the abbess ordered every page of the convent's ledger burned, a medieval version of a cover-up. It was as if that nun had never existed. Still, for every disappearance, new sisters took the vow, not of silence, but of secrecy. These women had their own code. Never write what you can whisper. Never whisper what can be prayed. A nun might spend her days tending herbs, her nights crafting invisible ink from lemon juice or milk. Their psalms became cipher texts, their embroidery hid secret emblems, and their confessions were intelligence reports. One confessor, Father Matteo, later recorded that he was approached by women whose sins were not of the flesh, but of the mind. When pressed, he wrote only that they carried burdens not their own. Historians now believe he was referring to nun spies, women who bore the guilt of others to protect them, taking the blame for information leaks they never made. But the real danger came when these networks began serving not just popes and kings, but themselves. Imagine a secret society within the church, invisible even to its own priests. There were whispers of an order known as sorors observants, the watching sisters. They answered to no nation, no pope. Their allegiance was to knowledge. To them, truth itself was divine. They sent agents disguised as midwives into noble households, confessors into enemy cathedrals, and herbalists into royal kitchens. They were everywhere, unseen, their messages encoded in hymns sung at Mass. By the 14th century, their influence reached deep into Rome itself. Some even claim they helped decide papal succession, using secrets, not swords. A single confession from a powerful man could sway the balance of an empire, and the sisters knew it. The church's official stance was silence. But between the cracks of history, you can still trace their presence. Marginal notes in manuscripts, symbols carved under altars, prayer books that don't match any known liturgical text. In one manuscript discovered in the Vatican archives, a faint line of ink reveals a hidden plea. "Forgive us, Lord, for what we hear." Was it a confession? A prayer? Or a message meant for another sister far away? Across kingdoms? We may never know. But here's the truth. The medieval world depended on them. Kings trusted them. Priests feared them. And the church used them. The spy nuns of Europe were not just relics of faith. They were instruments of survival in a world built on secrets. And yet, as the Renaissance dawned, their existence became dangerous. New inquisitions were rising. Heresy was no longer a sin. It was a sentence. And in the shadows of a changing Europe, the very network that had kept kingdoms alive would begin to unravel from within. Because when knowledge is power, and power belongs to men, women who know too much rarely live long. The dawn of the 15th century brought a new kind of storm. The church, once untouchable, was cracking from within. Popes fought popes, kings defied the Vatican, and reformers began whispering of corruption that reached the highest altar. In this chaos, the spy nuns found themselves at a crossroads: serve the church that used them, or protect the truth they had gathered for centuries. For generations, the Sisters of Silence had thrived in secrecy, passing coded prayers through abbeys, mapping alliances in confessionals, and keeping monarchs' sins sealed behind vows of chastity and discretion. But now, those same secrets became weapons, and someone, somewhere, wanted them all. It began in Avignon, 1411. A new confessor, Father Leon de Castor, arrived at the Abbey of St. Clare with orders from Rome to reaffirm orthodoxy among the sisters. What that really meant was simple: find the leaks. But Leon didn't know the abbess was no fool. Abbess Juliana had been part of the network for 3 decades. She had smuggled coded maps through hymnals, carried messages inside reliquaries, and helped a dozen kings and cardinals alike. And she knew one thing: when the church sends a man to reaffirm faith, it's really sending a spy to hunt other spies. So she did what the sisters had always done. She turned the confessor into a source. One evening, after a fabricated confession of doubt, she offered him wine, laced with a truth serum, concocted from monkshood and valerian. Leon, under its influence, revealed his true orders. Vatican agents had intercepted a letter hinting that the nuns were hiding forbidden texts and intelligence not meant for mortal eyes. Those texts were the last archives of sorors observance, the watching sisters, a collection of encrypted manuscripts said to contain information on royal illegitimacies, papal bribes, and confessions that could collapse dynasties. Juliana realized the church was not cleansing sin. It was erasing witnesses. Within months, convents began burning. Officially, the cause was heresy. In truth, it was containment. In Germany, the Abbey of Quedlinburg was set ablaze, its archives lost. In Spain, Dominican inquisitors seized an entire convent of sisters, accused of using invisible ink in Bibles. In Venice, 3 nuns were found drowned in their own cloister well, their hands bound with rosary beads. Their secret network was collapsing, but not everyone perished. A few fled north, disguised as beguines, laywomen devoted to charity. In Bruges, a group of these women built what looked like an ordinary hospital. Beneath it, they carved tunnels linking the city's catacombs, where they stored what was left of the sisterhood's intelligence. Letters, coded hymns, relics, even rings once worn by couriers of popes. These women became known as the Last Sandals. One of the most extraordinary relics of their world is known today as the Codex of Silence, discovered in 1898, buried behind a false wall in a Belgian monastery. To the untrained eye, it's a psalter, a book of prayers. But when examined under ultraviolet light, scholars found something extraordinary. Latin letters overlaid with micro-writing invisible to the naked eye. The text contains ciphered confessions from both nuns and noblemen, and instructions on how to pass messages using Gregorian chants. A chant, sung a certain way, could spell a word. The rhythm became the code. To this day, some musicologists believe that's why certain medieval hymns have strange repetitions. They were not divine, but deliberate. It was a ghost network, centuries ahead of its time. In 1453, the same year Constantinople fell, Pope Nicholas V issued a decree that sealed the fate of these women forever. It forbade all convents from engaging in non-liturgical correspondence and established the office of ecclesiastical oversight. Behind that name was the Church's first organized counterintelligence unit, a medieval secret police. Its task: erase the remaining traces of the spy nuns. Agents disguised as confessors traveled from abbey to abbey, collecting forbidden manuscripts. Witnesses were silenced. Testimonies vanished. And history, once again, was rewritten by the victors. Within 50 years, the last mention of soror's observance disappears from all known records. But the whispers never stopped. In the margins of a 16th century breviary stored in the Vatican library, a note in faint ink reads, "We remain. Our sandals still walk among the prayers." A threat? A vow? Or a reminder that you can burn paper, but never silence memory? Centuries later, historians pieced fragments together. A letter from an English abbess mentioning coded psalms. A confession from a Spanish monk admitting he, D, used sisters as ears in every court. But the most chilling discovery came in 1972, when archaeologists restoring an abbey near Rouen uncovered a hidden crypt containing bones of 12 women. Each skeleton wore the same thing, a simple pair of worn leather sandals. Buried beside them was a sealed copper cylinder. Inside, a parchment containing just 3 words in Latin, Audimus audier omnia, we dare to hear all. That phrase became the unofficial motto among modern historians studying them, and a haunting echo of the vow those women once lived by. What makes the story of the spy nuns extraordinary isn't just that they existed, it's that they were invisible by design. They weaponized faith in a world where women had no voice, turning silence into strategy, prayer into encryption, and obedience into camouflage. They were the medieval world's information backbone, unseen, unheard, and unforgettable. Without them, treaties might have failed, popes might have fallen, and kings might never have known what their rivals whispered. They weren't just spies. They were survivors of a world built to erase them. So the next time you walk through an old cathedral, and hear the soft echo of a hymn, remember, once had been a message. The sisters are gone, but their codes, their whispers, and their sandals, left behind in the dust of history, still echo beneath the marble floors of Europe. Because even the church could not silence the women who learned to listen better than any man alive. History hides its best spies behind silence, and this story proves it. If you want more hidden histories like this, from real Vatican secrets to the empires that lived and died on espionage, hit that subscribe button, because the next one might just change how you see history itself.